everything is going to reflect on you. Maybe not for the client. The client knows that they went for a budget caterer. The client knows that they didn't get real tablecloths or whatever. Sometimes who they choose for catering didn't, they went off they didn't go with my recommendations. They picked somebody, and the guests don't know that really horrible tasting chicken wasn't Agua Linda's menu, So you've got 100 people here who think that the food at Agua Linda Farm is not great, or they chinked on the such and such. So there's a quality baseline that you need to make a decision because it's reflecting on you.
Laurel Loew, welcome to the Venue RX podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
I'm excited to chat about your venue and just kind of really dig into your venue ownership experience. But before we do that, can you share with me about your personal and maybe even professional background prior to getting in the wedding and events industry?
It's funny. And actually right behind me, I have a newspaper clipping of when I was 13 and I was living in the Bahamas, and I decided that my horse needed to marry his pony friend. And I invited the press to come. I had different ponies were bridesmaids and grooms in, and we had a wedding for the ponies. But honestly, no, there was no intention to go into the wedding business. My prior experience was my husband and I were running the farm here as a vegetable farm. And I was teaching. He was, really at first he was a music man, but loved his family property and was trying to find his way here to not ever leave. And so we were vegetable farming, and we started doing some harvest festivals, and we had a pumpkin festival and a garlic and onion festival. And so we were putting on, and those events grew pretty big. So there was a lot of management of events there. So I guess that's how my background in events was from that.
So, wow. So you really kind of maybe knew that you wanted, maybe even subliminally knew that you wanted to be in events since a very young age, it sounds like.
There's so many, just when you look back, like, wow, the writing was on the wall, but yeah.
At what point did you decide, going from the farming and the stuff that you were doing on the property, that you wanted to make it at an event venue?
Really with the farming even, I'm a pretty private person by nature, and I was not into having people come here for the farming stuff, but we had a U-Pick thing on the weekends and our festivals, and it just kind of like light bulb went off that this place, people are crazy about it. They just want to be here. And the festivals were just a way to maximize that and get, revenue and create this amazing, and it really was creating a memorable experience. We really tried to keep things pretty authentic, and I enjoyed that so much. And I was a teacher. We did field trips. So there was more to it than just the weekend pumpkin pickers. But then folks started saying, hey, do you guys do weddings? It's so beautiful here. Can we get married here? And so it just slowly morphed into that until it took over, until that was, all right, we're not doing farmers markets. We had to make that decision pretty far out though, because you don't book weddings tomorrow, you book them a year out or,
Yeah.
So it was, anyway.
I'm curious, at what point was that? Like, at what point did that tipping point come? Was it after a certain number of weddings had been booked, or where was it when you, with your husband, you were like, we gotta pivot?
So our farming wise, our revenue became our pumpkin festival. So we were wonderful at farming. We grew incredibly great vegetables, and we had a big community supported agriculture program with members and all this stuff. But it was sort of like the pumpkin festival then made the money that we needed to do all the rest of the farming. So always October was set aside when we really started doing weddings. Spring was the first to say, Stewart would come back from farmers markets, and then we'd have events. And so I said, you know what, we can't do all of this. And we were raising kids, and I was still teaching. And so spring was first to go as far as like, now we're doing weddings in the spring. Letting go of the pumpkin festival was a big decision. Fall is beautiful in Arizona. So, October is, it's not cold like other, it's like gorgeous outdoor weather time. And, a new pumpkin farm opened just north of Tucson, and we saw our numbers drop, and we thought, yeah, this is the right message here. This is timing for us. Open it up for weddings. So that was, I guess, the turning point.
Very cool. Did you at any point struggle with the transition kind of from a marketing perspective, maybe of like people in the community knowing you as a farm and knowing you as a pumpkin patch area for events and things like that? Was there a difficulty in kind of reintroducing yourself maybe to the community as
right. Well, I think the first answer to that is one lent itself to the other. Like it actually gave it like, ooh, let's get married on a farm. So it actually, I think, helped. And having our name out as a farm, and now we can do weddings there. It gave it a little cachet, and, you know, pictures in the sunflower field and that kind of thing. For the people who were diehard into what we did farming wise, they were a little upset at us. You know, there was some kind of nasty kickback. Why aren't you guys doing this anymore? And, you know, oh, I'm going to pay the bills. But we also were very spoiled by the marketing that we got for free as a pumpkin farm. And we weren't exclusively a pumpkin farm, but the local TV stations were just dying for any kind of fall special. They would do live shots from here. They would, you know, we were in Better Homes and Gardens magazine, my grandmother's pumpkin pie recipe. You know, I mean, we were like, and didn't have to pay for any of it. And this is maybe early stages of Facebook and stuff. So that social media marketing wasn't really in place. We had a ridiculously long mailing list and stuff like that. But the TV stations and what they did for us for nothing as a pumpkin farm, we got really spoiled for sure, because that doesn't happen now.
Yeah. Well, and that's huge. And what a way to kind of get some initial, I guess, impetus behind the marketing. Yeah, totally. So then did that transition, people knew you as the pumpkin farm, they knew you as a farm, you know, an area to do the pumpkins and kind of more seasonal stuff. It sounds like you took on weddings in spring first, is that correct? And then kind of it bled into the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, really our season, we kind of avoid the hot Arizona rainy season time for weddings anyway. Our Arizona wedding season is, especially for outdoor venues, but I think in general is March, April, May, maybe bleeding into June. And then you shut your doors and then you're back on in mid-September through mid-November, more or less. And you can do some winter ones as well. But so our wedding season is a little different than other parts of the country. So we were still doing some September and November weddings, even with the Pumpkin Festival plunked right in the middle there. And now I don't remember what your question was.
No, you're good. You were totally answering it. I think I'm just curious about the flow, because marketing, you know, is so important for wedding venues, and it's changed so much, you know.
And I don't know. I had to, so it was 2020 when I went, okay, I've got to actually learn what this Instagram thing is. And it was like early 2020, pre-COVID, you know, so I was like, and I have a friend who's an incredible photographer, and he's a rancher down here, and he's Laurel. And I don't get it. And so I started doing Instagram stuff, and COVID hit and things just got weird. But I had this learning time to sort of play with it and figure out different techniques and things to do. But I'm still spoiled by the don't pay for advertising thing. And so we really have not gone the route of, you know, buying ads here, buying ads there. We did a little bit of Facebook ads, but we've tried to have it, I guess they say, more of an organic approach. It's a really odd business because you don't usually get return customers. So you can have a great product and your customers absolutely love it and they're not going to buy it again. So it's a really difficult, you know, you get a mailing list for a certain company if you're selling coffee mugs or whatever, you know, they love your product and they're going to buy it for their friends next time. And this product is a one and done. So it's still, for me, even my Instagram, most of my followers are people within the business. And I'm, you know, they're not necessarily customers, but they're more, hey, maybe they're going to tell my potential clients, you should check this place out. But even that is a tricky one for all of the different vendors in this industry. Usually the venue is the first one you find. Maybe you got your ring first, maybe even your dress, but the venue, and then you pick so I'm usually the one saying, you should use this photographer or this one, or you like this kind of food? How about this caterer? So even having all these wonderful followers who are in the industry doesn't necessarily translate to more revenue for me. It does for them. And then a lot of my followers are previous wedding clients, and I love hearing from them. In fact, I just posted a kudos to my bartenders, and you guys are the best, and, posted pictures from various weddings. And some of the feedback were from previous clients, and they were like, yes. And I got goosebumps just now because I'm like, yeah, they loved it enough to still follow us and chime in. But again, I don't know if we figured that out, that.
Yeah, they're not coming back and saying, hey, I loved it so much, we're going to come back again. They're like, no, we got married and we're done. Yeah. Totally. Tell me a little bit about the venue for anyone who's listening on the podcast side and, can't look at the pictures. Like what is the venue like?
So we are a 63-acre farm in southern Arizona. We are surrounded by other farmland, open space. So it's 360 degrees of mountains and beautifulness. It's southern Arizona is pretty lush and green. So people don't necessarily think of Arizona that way, but we're, very green, lots of big, gorgeous trees. These buildings on the property are adobe red tile roof, very signature Arizona. They built in the 40s. The architect is sort of our regionally famous architect. They do home tours of his designs in Tucson, and we're the southernmost one that he designed. Joesler, Josiah Joesler, I think is how you say his first name. And then my mother-in-law, she married my father-in-law. She was in her 20s and had grown up in Boston, and she came here and she had horses, and she started pushing manure around and growing flowers, and just really made this her beautiful oasis here at this gorgeous hacienda. So lots of big open spaces, beautiful views, beautiful architecture in the backgrounds of all these photos, family owned and operated. I'm
just looking at some of the photos on here, and it's stunning. Like the views that you guys have are just so gorgeous. When you have people coming out there, your audience, your clients, are they coming from Tucson? Are they traveling quite a ways from Phoenix? Where do you get most of the clients from?
I would say mostly Tucson. We do have Nogales, and now the town of Sarita has actually grown pretty big, and so we've got even closer folks coming in. Definitely Phoenix as well. But we get people like you who went to the U of A and met someone, and they're coming back to the area. We actually get a lot of previous students who are looking kind of a middle ground for, we went to school there. The micro weddings I've done have all but one been from out of state. They're coming. I've had two from Florida come here for their micro wedding. So I had one recently. They were from Canada. So we do get from all over as well. But certainly with Tucson being so close, that's our primary.
With a rental on the property, I notice you have a couple of different packages. How do you typically, when someone rents the venue, what are they getting? Or is it canvas, all inclusive? Share a little bit more about kind of the experience that you give guests.
Sure. So we recently added a more inclusive version because I was finding that some clients, they want you to just tell them, this is in place, this is in place. But our baseline package, we give access to the venue pretty much all day. They can be on site as early as 9:30 in the morning until the end of their event. So they pick their start time. So let's say they do a 5 o'clock ceremony. They're now on a 5-hour clock, done at 10 unless they add overtime. So they really have this whole place to themselves. And a lot of people will say, it just feels like it's our place and we're at home here. And we've got a bridal dressing room, 2 options there, and they're in the old hacienda, beautiful rooms. And then the groom's ready room is actually a Western cantina. So they like, sometimes the grooms are walking around like, yeah, that's great. And then they go into the canteen and like, oh yeah, we're gonna, it's a fun space. And then we have, I think what's amazing is the only thing that we built for our wedding venue here is our dance floor. So the dance floor is here. Everything else, we've got a pool house, clubhouse, bar that's included. So we have full sound DJ package. It is always included. My husband is a sound engineer, and he does the DJing, emceeing, and everything for weddings, and works with live bands also. My sister-in-law is my primary bartender. So she manages that. So bar service in this awesome sort of Spanish colonial bar. Tables, chairs, linens we provide. So that's our baseline. And then our clients then can choose the caterer that they want. They can DIY the florals or go all out, so that package gives people the opportunity to either kind of DIY, budget the rest of it, or we've got this amazing dream team that we're bringing in, and it's going to be this grand affair, and they're starting with our base package. And now we've added another package that has a partnership with a local caterer that we love, styling packages that I do, a florist that I love working with included in that. And I'm surprised that people are going for it. Since I've launched that package, which wasn't very long ago, I've had 4 people book that package. So I'm excited about that. And we have a micro wedding package, which I love too.
Well, and I can imagine for people who are visiting from out of town, if people are coming in, you've got someone from California, someone from Tucson, went to U of A, they're coming back out there. You're getting someone who wants some of the pieces already put together for them.
Right. It's harder for them to do the legwork. They don't necessarily have their favorite caterer in the area. And we can help them with that.
Yep. I'm curious, when you first kind of decided to make that switch from more of the farming stuff to more of the event stuff, how many weddings per year were you doing? And then how many weddings a year are you doing now that you're more fully transitioned over?
Well, it really tiptoed along. Honestly, the first weddings, and we did a lot of them, were everyone we know and ourselves. Like everybody that, there's a lot of people who love this place, family, old friends. My husband's family's been here, we've been together for 33 years. So we were doing a lot of events just for people we knew. The first person to ask us, can I get married? That there was essentially a stranger. Her great uncle, Carlos Ronstadt, who's Linda Ronstadt's uncle, built this place. And her mother remembered coming here. And that was the first wedding for a stranger that we did. And we didn't push it. It's slowly. So I don't even really have a number there, where it started becoming, it trickled along. And we didn't start, I maybe put a poster up during the pumpkin festival, but we didn't push it for quite a while.
Yeah. When did you, at what point did you start? Like basically how many years would you consider yourself a wedding venue, I guess? Because I know you did go through that transitional period.
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, our last pumpkin festival, which was our sort of money earner, was in 2014. My husband's sitting over there. And so that was definitely when we're like, put the pitchfork up, turn the tractor off. We're in the wedding business. So
was that the year Gabrielle and Mark got married?
That may Gabrielle Giffords and Mark Kelly were married here, and that was one of our famous sweet. I think it was years before that. Yeah, because we even did for their wedding. I did their arrangements with pumpkins we were growing and stuff from the farm. So we were still full farming.
So going through COVID then, did it impact you heavily, or because most of it is outside, you were able to get some of the distancing or things like that, or did it really impact the business quite a bit?
It impacted us quite a bit. We really did nothing that 2020. 2020, we did a couple really kind of socially distanced ones in the fall. There was some confusion about what we were allowed to do. Santa Cruz County is a special little place where it depends on who you talk to. And then 2021 started kind of building back up. And then 2022 was huge, like out of control. Like we were like, oh my gosh, I think the muscle I pulled in my leg is still healing from 2022. And now it's tapered off and it's kind of back to normal.
Yeah, I definitely felt that across the entire industry. And even, guests who have come on the podcast have said, there was kind of that boom that happened right after with all the postponements and everything. But then, now it's maybe a little bit more towards normal. And some people are even saying it's slowing down a little bit. So it really kind of depends. So I'm curious then, as far as we've kind of talked to marketing a little bit and the packages and what you're offering to people who get married there, how do you manage all this? I mean, do you have software that you use? Do you have a team? Take me through that side of it a little bit.
So I'm a little guilty of feeling like I should learn how to do stuff and not pay somebody to do it. Because I think there are certainly times where, I should be paying somebody to do that task. But I do our website, and that I'll never let that go, because if I want to make a change, I could do it as soon as I get off this meeting and it's done. I do our website. I do all of our social media. It's gig work. So having a team, and especially when you live in a rural area like we do, it's hard to we don't have a full-time job for somebody to come in and help me be the event manager, or even the groundskeeper. It's a little tricky for us to get and keep people. And that's one reason why I think we're still such a family-run play. We really rely on each other. But so as far as I've got, Alex being my bartender, my husband being my DJ, I wouldn't want that any other way. Our groundskeeper just retired. He's been on the farm for 21 years, and I'm kind of going, so love you, Louise, miss you. So that's essential. And then I've got a gal who comes in, and she's wonderful. She lives right down the road, and she doesn't mind me switching up the schedule, or I do need you, don't need you. And so knock on wood, Selena comes and she helps just like clean the bathrooms and do stuff like that, and flip the place as a wedding the next day and things. So, but as far as the more office management stuff, I'm really kind of stumbling through that on my own. I don't use any kind of scheduling honeybook or any of that stuff. So I've got my calendar here. And also we do 25 to 30 weddings a year. So we're not looking at, we're not doing 100 weddings a year. I certainly know and I don't know that I want to either,
Yeah. It's interesting. I've talked to venue owners across all ends of the spectrum. Venue owners that are not even open yet, who just bought the property and they're in construction. Venue owners who are, have been in business 10, 20 years. And it seems like there are different kind of hurdles, I guess, that you face at different things. And if you're kind of in that 20 to 30 range, like, I feel like there are definitely some things like Honeybook, like different systems, like automating or hiring out some of those different pieces that you don't need to do. But the second that you get over that 40 number, or even 50, right, then now you really need it, because you just physically don't have time to do the website, the Instagram, everything it takes to kind of get to that level.
Right.
So, totally makes sense. You mentioned not necessarily wanting to do more than the kind of 25 to 30 that you're at. Is that because of kind of how much work you personally are putting into it? Like, what is in your mind as far as why that is kind of your sweet spot?
Well, one, we are primarily an outdoor venue. We're in Arizona. We got great weather, so it's not really the weather that I'm concerned about, but it's wear and tear on the property itself. So, in 2022, when we had 50 weddings, we usually do 25, it was like, where's the lawn? And so it was so gorgeous. And I have to remind myself that, because people come like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I'm going, but wear and tear on the property itself. And it is wear and tear on us. What's interesting though, so for people listening, I was terrified the first time we had a weekend where we had back-to-back weddings, or even triple header weddings. Oh my God. And I actually found that it was easier, that and my husband, again, you're talking about, I've got my bartender and my DJ, they're in-house. So, Stewart has quite an extensive setup for his sound system. It's already in place. My sister-in-law stays the night and she's here the next day. So a lot of it, it's easier to flip it the next day, I found, especially with an outdoor venue, because you know, a week later, you've got some wind blew in and you're back to like raking and blowing and mowing and making it all back together. So the back-to-back weddings isn't really something that we're afraid of. But it is that one after the other, and the place just getting kind of worn down, and more so than we want it to be.
That makes so much sense. And I love you highlighted that, because I do think for maybe first-time venue owners, that is a fear. Like, oh my gosh, we've done one a weekend, but what happens when we add two? What happens when we have a Friday, Saturday, or even three, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? We discovered that pretty early on, and we actually have a weekend coming up at some of the properties that we manage here in California that have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. Those, even though it feels crazy and there is definitely wear and tear and it's a lot of labor hours, it's like you kind of just get into work mode.
You're in this rhythm. Rhythm, and your people are in the rhythm with you. But I will say, and my husband's chiming in kind of my ear over here, this place was not built to be a venue for a large group of people. I mean, it's very expansive compared to a lot of venues that I've gone to visit, like the space that we have, the way it flows. But it is a private estate. It's not, it's a home. And so if someone has built a wedding facility and they've got commercial bathrooms and they've got, whatever, that makes it function as a commercial facility, then, it might be easier for them to turn around a lot. But I think the funny thing too with the outdoor venue because we throw around the idea of building at least some kind of structure. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, and we could extend our season. But I tell you, when it's like the busters are busting tables at the end of the night and you've got like they're into the grass, there's no mopping. I like, maybe mowing the lawn once a week is a little easier than having to mop up red wine. So there's certain parts about it that I think actually are easier in the cleanup than, again, we're Arizona. So we have, in other parts of the country, I don't think you could do a primarily outdoor venue like we're able to do here and have the numbers that we have.
Very true. It's funny, if with the dry weather as well, you have that opportunity to just throw it. And maybe if you threw it on the ground, it'd be dry. But by the next day, easy, No, that makes sense. So if you could go back, because we have a lot of venue owners who listen to this and they, they're starting or they're maybe transitioning a property they have to, something else. So I think we have a lot of newer venue owners who listen, as well as some experienced ones, of course. But I'm curious, if you were to go back and kind of give yourself some advice, you at Stewart, some advice on things to do, things not to do to kind of get where you are sooner. Sure. What would some of those things be? What kind of topics are coming to mind, and maybe what's some of that advice?
Well, I think that first of all, since we did trickle into it, we weren't trying to like create, this is what we're going to be and then present it. Maybe I'm not the best person to answer that question, but I will say as we went along, there were certain things like, wow, that photograph of that wedding makes us look bad. We have to buy the furniture. Like I can't have those horrible plastic chairs with the flopping in the wind plastic linens in pictures, because that's us. Like people don't know, oh, they picked a budget, forgive them. It reflects poorly on us. So I think that, one thing is just think about what's your baseline that you want reflected in your venue, just in pictures that are going to get published. And so for us, making that decision to, all right, we're going to include this stuff. And for a few years, we were renting it from a company in Tucson that would bring everything down. And then it just made sense to purchase all that stuff. But I think that there's a quality baseline that you want to have. And from there, your clients can rent farm tables instead or do something instead. And I think that something to keep in mind too, we're still very flexible with outside vendors coming in. But one thing I try to tell Stewart to do every time is to thank the caterer that the client has chosen for coming in before he makes announcements, because sometimes who they choose for catering didn't, they went off they didn't go with my recommendations. They picked somebody, and the guests don't know that really horrible tasting chicken wasn't Agua Linda's menu, So everything is going to reflect on you. Maybe not for the client. The client knows that they went for a budget caterer. The client knows that they didn't get real tablecloths or whatever. But your guests don't know. So you've got 100 people here who think that the food at Agua Linda Farm isn't that great, or they chinced on the such and such. So there's a quality baseline that you need to make a decision because it's reflecting on you. Whether
it's just like the pictures that you were just saying with the furniture. Someone who sees that picture on Instagram or on Yelp or Google or wherever, they're not going to differentiate and be like, oh, those look like the chairs from that rental company. No, they're going to think Agua Linda.
Exactly. That's Agua Linda. Yeah. And fortunately, my own little plug here, background's always pretty. So
that sometimes, it's not, you're not looking at the chairs. You're looking at, and I've got it right here. It's a gorgeous. So as you think about the future, as you think about, continuing to do weddings on the property, are you...
Sorry.
What was that?
Sorry. I'm roasting in here, and he's saying it's bad for audio to turn on the air. That's my audio guy. See how he is? Like my husband.
Yeah, he knows. Sound. You got some curtains up back there, a little noise absorption. There you go. Fun fact about Zoom, it actually absorbs so much of the exterior noise. Like I'm here in this building, and there's like AC unit going on. There's people in the building around, and it like Zoom does a great job with filtering it out.
Nice.
Kind of cool stuff. But
seriously that.
But so I'm curious as you look forward and kind of think about the future of Agua Linda and what you want to do, kind of what you want to accomplish, how many weddings you want to book, things like that. Where do you see yourself going in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's such a good question. I really feel that despite whatever efforts, we're still a well-kept secret. Like people go, gosh, I've never heard of this place. I feel that we're that special place. I guess I'm very biased. Of course I am. But I feel that we are that very special place that's very unique. And I want it to be more of a privilege I never want it to outprice people who want to have like their budget wedding and their, but since we don't do the food and we don't do that part of it, we don't, oh my gosh, I'm sidetracking here. I've got a client right now who's on a really tight budget. And so they're doing a lot of DIY stuff and I'm sort of like, oh my gosh, maybe they shouldn't have chosen us. They could have been married at a park and save some money. But I realized too, is that if we are their primary splurge, and they've got this beautiful place for their wedding, and then they're going to DIY these pieces and whatever, it makes no difference to me. As long as I got those beautiful pictures, I've got my, it really makes no difference to me financially if they chose a 5-star caterer and they're paying, $100 a head for food versus a pizza truck. So if somebody our price is not going to change. I don't make more money if they do that versus that. But I do feel that I want our venue and more people to know how special and different it is than other venues that are out there, at least in our area. So I don't know if that really answers your question. And I love doing we launched our micro wedding. Ironically, I launched the micro wedding package that we do right before COVID. And so I was surprised. It's like, oh, timing's everything. And I love doing that package. So I would like to do more like that. My micro wedding packages, and I'm on some Facebook venue pages and I read what people say about micro weddings and pricing and, I don't charge less, I charge more. So it's a small wedding and I'm including all of my fine china and I'm including the food with my favorite caterer, Cafe a la carte in Tucson. And it's a plated meal and I'm going to do your flowers and it's going to have crystal champagne coupes and it's going to be top notch. And so, no, you're not going to get I'm going to work harder, but for a small group of people. And I love doing that because I get a real kick out of that side of it, but I'm not really up for doing it for 200 people.
Totally.
We still do the 200 people, but I have fun doing that side of it.
Totally. Well, it's like, what is it? 30 people versus 200 people. What is that? Six times as many or something. Like it's like such a different type of role that usually one person, it's 2, 3, 5 people who are pulling that off.
Right.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, last, I have a kind of a 2-part question. I ask, favorite and least favorite part of owning your venue. But before we get to that, I want to ask, how have you seen the industry shifting over the years that you've been in business, the wedding industry? And have you been impacted by local competition that has popped up, or a lot of people are talking about the economy right now? Has that made a difference in the how you've looked at the future of your venue?
Well, I how it's changed over time. It's interesting. I think that less younger people are getting married. Like, I think that people are waiting a little bit longer to get married. And so we're having more people that they're paying for it themselves and it's not the parents doing it. So that's been happening. I would say, what was interesting this year is we had our crazy 2022 explosion. Spring was back to normal. And then this fall is like, they just kind of skipped over it. So I'm booking next year like crazy. And wait a minute, guys, what happened to the fall? And I think that people kind of panicked with like inflation and just waited. And so here we are. So we've got this kind of weird fall coming up. But then we're booking spring like crazy. So that's fine. We'll take a little break.
Yeah.
What else? What else?
As far as competition goes, do you?
Oh, sure.
A lot of venues. I think a lot of venues started in 2020. Like from the conversation that I've had on the podcast. Have you experienced that in your area?
There are more wedding venues in the Tucson area. So I do feel that that's spreading us a little thinner, but there's also our own community down here has grown. Like I was mentioning the town of Sarita, when I moved here, the town of Sarita, nobody lived there. And so then to have somebody coming and saying, we're getting married. Grew up in Sarita. I'm like, really? Like, I'm getting old. So there's this whole generation that's much closer to us than Tucson that are now coming here. So I think it all evens out. And I think that our little two-back area, and this is something actually that answers your previous question about where do I see us in the future. I feel like a little inspired to be an ambassador to two-back Amado. We're technically Amado. Town of Amado, which means beloved, by the way, of course. But two-back is right here, and it's this artist community, and there's a couple of historic great ranches that have opened their doors for Airbnb, Verbo. We're kind of partnering. We're doing events. They're doing the lodging, and I'm excited about starting like more begets more. And let's get down here, and look at two-back, everything that two-back has. And you can get married at the Tumacacori Mission. You can have your reception here at Agua Linda. You can stay at the historical Schenkel Ranch or the two-back Ranch. And these are amazing, old, incredible places that people have opened their doors to the community. So I feel that with all these other venues down here, it's just going to bring more people. I think that the buzz about two-back area of Southern Arizona is just beginning. And so I'm excited about that. And I feel that even if these other ranches start doing weddings too, it's just like, this is going to be the place to do it.
It'll bring the
Southern Arizona. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool that you say that. I was just talking to a venue owner actually earlier today on another interview, and he was saying that he's excited when he sees new venues coming to the area because he knows he was a little bit outside of Atlanta. And he's like, previously, like when we started, there was nothing out here. So it was like people were only coming out to tour one venue, and sometimes they were skipping it because they were like, I'm
too far to go. Yeah.
Too far to go. But now they can go and they're like, oh, let me hit those 3. So now there's kind of more people that are coming and getting exposed to the area. It seems like something similar.
And you can do the complete thing down here too, which is super cool. Like I just feel like, I guess if I had the budget, I'd go to, Costa Rica and do a wedding down there. So, but Southern Arizona is and for people from Phoenix, even, this is cool country. It's like they've escaped the heat just coming, from Phoenix. And I feel that our area is got so much charm and so much, we got great restaurants right here, all within just a couple of minutes of our little ranch here. So.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, let's wrap with the two questions that I like to ask every venue owner. What is your favorite part about owning your venue? And then what is your least favorite? Let's start with the least favorite, just so we can end on a high
note. Least favorite, bathrooms. Managing bathrooms. We've got, it's an old, everything's on septic. We're, managing. We have yet to build a commercial bathroom. We've got these beautiful rooms that people go into for bathrooms. And so it's a constant.
Don't put anything down the septic. Yep.
And if you're a city person, you don't get it. There's no such thing as flushable wipes.
So true. It's so true. It's not, even if some say they are, they're not.
Yeah, not true. Yeah. Favorite is we are very lucky. We live in a little slice of heaven here, and it's a lot of work. And it's always a lot of work. Right now we're in our off season. So what are we doing? We're cleaning the roofs and we're redoing the fencing and we're trimming trees. It doesn't stop. And then it still needs to look good for a tour on Saturday, So it's a lot of work, but the view I get to sit down and look at when I'm sipping my coffee and the people, my children, my friends' children, the love that they have for this place means so much to so many people that we love. And being able to be the stewards of this ranch and to continue to do these things for family too. We do a lot of family events still here. And so that life, it's the lifestyle. It's our lifestyle here that I love. So
very cool. That's excellent.
Wedding, and you know what? It's a great industry. It's a happy day, and it's like we're out there, Stewart's DJing, and I'm standing behind the DJ booth with them, and we're just like, this has been exhausting today, and look at these people. They're having so much fun, and we're having fun with them. So it's a great business.
It's cool that you guys do it together. I love that. And the DJ is such an influential piece of the puzzle on the days. That's really cool.
Really is. I don't think people realize, and to have an outside DJ come in, they've never been here before, and how do they know? However, very, very glad that he does that.
Yeah. Yeah. The DJ is kind of like between the DJ and the planner. It's kind of like the quarterback or quarterbacks of the whole event, because they guide, they lead, they kind of usher things. They usher the bride down the aisle. They have they tell the guests where to go. So that's huge. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I appreciate it. I'm glad that you reached out. Really, really feel privileged to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks for being on. If you want, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to learn more about Agua Linda Farm and just kind of see the gorgeous pictures, all that, we will be putting links for anyone who's on the podcast. Where's the best place to reach out to you on?
Best place to reach out is probably through the website via email, but I'm really proud of our Instagram too. So that's a great spot to go and really, really glean a lot of information as well. So I'd say one or the other.
Cool. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you.